Hello, Internet. How is everybody doing this lovely Friday? I just decided to do a live chat. I haven't done one of these things in forever, and just throw one together and just chat, answer some questions, just kind of spend the afternoon. But can everybody hear me all right? I don't know if I never know how well people can hear me on these things, so it's always weird if I'm just uh, quietly waggling my lips as you watch. But okay, well, everyone can hear me. Spectacular. Uh, so, um, well, I figured I'd just go ahead and field some questions. But until I get any, and oh, by the way, if you could put question in all caps, that would be freaking spectacular. Because right now I'm looking at this chat window, and if it doesn't say question, my eyes kind of skim right past it. But currently, right now, tomorrow we're going to be playing some Call of Cthulhu, a little pulp mod to it. We're going to be playing the Asylum. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've got like all my notes behind me that I've been sitting there quietly working on and making any last minute, changes or, noting it to myself. Let's see. Oh, see. Ider 22. Seth, you're a wonderful man. It depends who you ask. Thanks for introducing me, my friends, to the wonderful world of tabletop gaming. Oh, my pleasure. I'm happy that you're enjoying it. It's been such a huge part of my life. Let's see. Molly X question: how was your day? Pretty good. Yeah, no complaints. Kenny, how do I feel about Thaco? If I never see Thaco again, I'll be happy. Back when we used Thaco, uh, I didn't understand what the big deal was. Why nobody liked it because it was pretty obvious. You take these and you subtract that and you do all this trigonometry in your head and boom, that's what you need to hit. But then when I left Thaco for a few years and I came back to it, that's when I was like, what the hell is this? Like however that hardwiring in my brain was, it had obviously diminished some. So I didn't find it as intuitive as I used to. But that's kind of the benefit of when you're kind of taught how to do something when you're 13 and you're eagerly absorbing everything there is about the tabletop games. You do not realize how freaking weird some of the mechanics are. So. Yeah, Thaco was cool, but I'll be happy if I never have to deal with that again. Boss man, hey, thank you for the $5. You actually always comment on here. I know you. I gotta go, Seth. Have a great stream. Almost done with my Horror on the Orient Express game. Your vids have really helped. I have not run Horror on the Orient Express yet, but I really want to. Now next year, and I've got it like right. You can kind of see it right there. Next year for a convention, it's going to be called Eldritch Con. And that is in November 2022. So hopefully we are through pandemics and everything by then. I'm going to be doing this convention, but their platinum package, which I have as a participant, is we're going to start in Paris, and then we're going to get onto the Orient Express, and it is a 2-day journey to get to the convention, which is in Bucharest. And the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society is going to be doing some sort of event on it. I have no idea what it is, but I figure HPLHS, yeah, it's going to be awesome. And that's also going to have Mike Mason, Sandy Peterson, Oscar Rios, and I believe, I'm like 95% sure, Guy Sklanders from How to Be a Great Game Master is going to be there. I was telling him about it, that he contacted them, and I think he was able to get himself on board with that. So that'll be a fun one. So after I've actually ridden the Orient Express, I'm going to have no choice but to have to play the adventure or campaign. I think that thing takes like a year or two to play. So while I'm on it, I'm going to be taking a lot of photographs of different parts of the train to serve as backplates for jack scenes, because a lot of times when I'm making my videos, it takes forever to find a suitable backplate where it passively looks like he is standing at whatever the scene is. And I usually have to, blow up small pictures or have to Photoshop people out of it and all this crap. But and they're never quite the angles or the way I want them to. So it's like, if I'm on the Orient Express, I'm actually going to walk around with my camera and take tons and tons of photographs. That way I can hopefully come home with some that are actually at the right height. They're wide, because a lot of times you find a perfect shot, but they cropped it vertically and you're like, but so I will be doing that, and hopefully I will be playing Horror on the Orient Express once I get back. So I am looking forward to it. So if anyone is not doing anything in November 2022, Eldritch Con, that should be fun. Randy Crockett, when is your next book? I'm not really working on one at the moment. Channel's been soaking up a ton of my time, and really I've just got to wait for one to really jump out. I keep having ideas for what I would want to do for a Valdekin 5, and which would be Louisa. It would be her story, but I'm not really sure exactly where I want it to go. I have to figure out what the kind of the main plot is. I know what the human element plot is, but then the actual like quest or the adventure that they're doing while the human element plot's going on, I haven't decided. It needs to be something that's vastly different than my other books, because I want each of the Valdekins to feel very different from each other as both the underlying story and then the main adventure story. I don't want it to ever feel like I'm like recycling the same thing. I'm kind of entertaining the thought that I might go back to New Orleans, or at least have New Orleans be a main part of it, mostly because I really like New Orleans and I really like Malcolm and doing all that. So I haven't decided yet, but I'm not really working on anything. I've had a couple little short stories I've done, but no big projects. And any short stories will be announced once they've either sold or once the publisher has given me clearance to tell everybody about it, because there's a few that are kind of sitting in that weird zone where like I sold it and I'm just waiting to tell people about it. Rob Webb, any plans for a video with a Halloween theme? I had really wanted to do the Dare. It's a 1980s Call of Cthulhu Halloween adventure where you get to play a bunch of kids. And we played it. We had an absolute freaking blast with it. And the delay on that is mostly because I kind of have it in my head that I want to rent, for the lack of a better word, a friend of mine's son for it, just because since all of the characters range between 11 and 13. If I'm going to do Jack scenes, and I think at this point in my channel to do a review and not have Jack scenes would not go over well. But I figure if I'm going to do Jack scenes, having me as a 40-something-year-old guy dressed up like a 12-year-old kid would be not good. So for my son, he games. I was thinking about maybe writing it all out and having him portray Jack for it. We'll have to decide kind of the logistics on it, because he's like 45 minutes away at the other side of the DFW Metroplex. So we have to kind of hammer out schedules, and then we're going to figure out if he wants to do the voice, or if maybe I want to like overdub Jack. That way this young child will open his mouth and it'll come talking out like this, but we'll figure it out. So, but as far as making anything by the Halloween deadline, nah, probably not. It always weirds me out when people release like a video on Halloween for a game they should play on Halloween. It's like, really, you're giving game masters like an hour and a half to prep? That's not gonna work. So if I was gonna do one, it probably would have been right at the end of September, give people enough time to try to do one. So Neil Pepper, how are you? Hey, I'm doing good. Carson Smith, are there any games that you wish you could play but are unable to? Oh God, there is quite a bit. I would like to get a bit more time in with Alien. I've got a Destroyer of Worlds just sitting across the room from me. That one I want to do in person, but it also requires that we have kind of a gap in whatever campaigns that we're doing in order to kind of fit it in. Because right now we'd have to take away from what we're playing in order to play that. So mostly my big hangups always just come down to scheduling issues. We've only got so much time that we can do it all. Um, I get a lot of questions of like, when are you going to play this? When are you going to play that? It's like, I only got so many weekends. But Alien's one that I'd like to try. I would like to get a little bit more playtime with Cyberpunk Red under my belt. My buddy George, who, after years of not running, after I accidentally burned his game down, has actually been running a little bit of us through Cyberpunk Red. We're kind of doing that short little online games during the week. And that ended up kind of getting put on hold for a couple months, and he's talking about bringing that back. So I'm looking forward to it because I get to play, and I really enjoy my character that I'm doing. But I would like to get some chance to run it, let him play it, and once I've had enough time playing it and running it, I'll probably look at doing a review. But in the meantime, I just want to get a bit more playtime with Red under my belt. But right now, we're enjoying Pulp Cthulhu. We're then doing a side game of Cult. That's the one that we do online, while the Pulp Cthulhu we do in person. And I am loving the hell out of Cult, which once again, once I get some more time with it, I'll do a video about it. And I mean, I couldn't really do one right now because I wouldn't be able to give it a full overview because I haven't seen everything it can do. Let's see. Richard B. Scott Brown, motherfucker, get out! I have a showing. So, for those of you who don't follow my Twitter, I got an email a couple of months ago from a Scott Brown agent, and I had an absolute moment of terror when I saw that Scott Brown had evidently found my video, which at this point was a few years old, and they loved it. They sent me a Scott Brown hoodie and a pack of Scott Brown balloons. So I did get a package in the mail that had, Scott Brown GTFO written on it with like 3 exclamation points. So that warmed my black soul, is knowing that they really enjoyed it. So hopefully that is a joke that they make around the office in Denton. Let's see. Whoa, man, this chat sometimes jumps around. Okay. Michigan, IB22. Let's see. Do you read through the whole book before playing a game? I'm chewing through the Keeper's Guide. It's starting to feel like homework. I chew through the combat. I also do some pre-combat practice with a buddy of mine. My buddy Jesse is usually who's helped me with that ever since college. We'll do kind of some combat scenarios with a character, like one-on-one with melee and then some of the moves, and then firearms and try and cover and all that sort of stuff. You just kill each other back and forth, live, die, repeat. And some of the stuff you really don't need to review too much before the first session. You need the basics of how the game mechanics work. You're going to need the basics of how combat works. Definitely need the basics of everything as far as how character creation works. But and you can kind of get most of sanity. You don't necessarily need to know all the recovery. You don't need to know spells, probably. A lot of it just depends on what you're looking at as doing your first adventure. So if you were to say, pick up The Haunting, because that's free, wonderful old starter scenario, I would look through The Haunting, and I would really just study the stuff that appears in that adventure. Give yourself a passable awareness, sort of general knowledge of how other parts might work, such as chases, in case there's a chase. You can't predict if something like that's going to happen. And then just go, because you're really not going to learn a system until you play it. You can read it, you can make notes, you can just go over it over and over again. But really, in that first hour of playing it, you're going to learn how it actually works, because up until that moment, it's kind of theoretical. So if you've read the Keeper's Guide or kind of given it kind of a really good skim through, I've also got a whole video series on it, which you could probably check that out. I say just go for it. If your players know you're new to it, they'll be understanding. If you have to wait, hold on, let me check the rule book. You don't need to feel that you have to have an absolute total mastery before you start. So, but yes, I do read through the mechanics of games before I play them, but I would by no means call myself totally proficient in it. In the first, 2 or 3 games are usually kind of hiccupy as we're kind of getting all the bumps out of it as we're kind of learning what it is because the players are learning it too. So don't spend too much time reading and studying and just kind of get an idea of the basics, make some characters, go. You will learn it fast enough. Let's see, what do we got? Ripoff Productions. Thank you for the $5. You ever play any of the Fantasy Flight Warhammer 40K RPGs? No, I've never done Warhammer. Any of that. I just never got into it. Brett Kramer says the Dare is on sale right now for $8.99. Okay, so one thing that makes that adventure cool, and I'm going to go ahead and just say this right now. They have a mod that they call Call of Kid Cthulhu, where you're playing children. So it's much more streamlined than regular Call of Cthulhu. We've got a ton of skills. It really just boils them down into a very simple thing. Like instead of jump and climb and all those, it's just called gym class skill. So if your character wants to do something athletic, you just roll gym class and you're done. Very fun, very streamlined game. I would love to see more stuff use that mod. I would actually really like to see that mod really kind of put out by itself, like almost like some sort of a supplement book. And I would love to see a lot more stuff using that because it was brilliant and we had a ton of fun with it. Question: have I ever done a live chat or event as Jack the NPC? I have not, and that was from Mark Clement. I once looked into doing because if I did Jack, I'd want to have some sort of filters, where I could be black and white or sepia or something. And I looked at all the little plugins that you can do to run it through this program, like an add effects, and it runs back through YouTube. And I read all the hurdles that is, and I'm like, yeah, that's just way too much work because I am so technologically klutzy. So I haven't done it. I'd love to do it, but I probably need somebody to actually show me the ropes through it because being live is not the best time to figure out how to get some sort of program to work. Also, if I did it as Jack, it wouldn't be able to go that long because after a while, I cannot maintain that voice. Brett Vaughn. Question: have you ever considered Kids on Bikes or Teens in Space? I have played Kids on Bikes as part of their Kickstarter. Wasn't my jam. We had fun. I played it at a convention finally after I'd gotten all the Kickstarter stuff in. It's a little too rules light for me. Wasn't my thing. Now that Kickstarter happened about the same time the Dare did, and the Dare was really delayed. So I got Kids on Bikes, and I was kind of like, I wasn't too pleased with it. It didn't really call out to me enough that I wanted to run it. But then the Dare came out far later, and that was absolutely perfect. So that's something I would like more of. People that love Kids on Bikes seem to love it. Just not my jam. Let's see. Oh, Linkian06 question. I just joined. Well, welcome. Are there any RPGs that you're looking to try, indie, old, or new? As far as new RPGs to look into, not really. Right now we came back to Pulp Cthulhu. We're doing Cult. We're going to start back up with a little bit of Cyberpunk Red. That's about it for the moment. We just kind of play what we're enjoying, and we're enjoying those. So that's just basically our needs are met. So once something else kind of cool really catches my eye, I'll check it out and see if that's something my players would like. Astor's Night. By the way, I'm going to mispronounce everybody's name. If you've watched my videos long enough, you know that I have no capability of pronouncing things correctly. Anyways, thank you for the $10. Seth found your channel a few weeks ago. I've been binging your content. Your Call of Cthulhu series gave me the confidence to run my first game next weekend. Bit nervous, but looking forward to it. Hey, have fun. Call of Cthulhu is my absolute favorite system. We usually do it with a Pulp Cthulhu mod because we like to have just a little bit more beefiness to the characters for a long-term campaign. For one-shots, we do straight Call of Cthulhu. For campaign play, we usually have a little bit more pulp aspect to it because we like to have the hit points and the two pulp talents and a little bit more skill points. But also like to have the bad guys be kind of beefed up just as much. But have fun. If it's one that I've reviewed, check it out. Maybe there's some suggestions or tips that you could use. But hope you guys have a blast with it. It's absolutely just a wonderful system. Christian Kanger, which D&D, AD&D do you consider the best all around? Piazzo, core rule book. Well, I don't really play D&D anymore. I know first edition D&D. We used to do a first and second edition hybrid for years. We were playing that still when deep into third edition. When finally we got out of playing that, 2008. So I know though that kind of hybrid edition, which is just AD&D for like the back of my hand. I did play 5th edition for a year after it was released. I think 5th edition is far cleaner. If I was going to recommend anybody pick up Dungeons and Dragons, I'd just tell them to go to 5th edition. There are definite things that I prefer about the older editions. I do have a few little gripes. Some of them I think are legitimate. Others are just old man yells at clouds because it's not the way it was when I was young. But I just say 5th edition. But then again, I also left level-based games to go for skill-based games. So I'm probably not the best person you should ask about that. I'd probably go for somebody that really enjoys a good level-based game, and they can probably give you a much better answer than me. Oh, there it was. And then it was gone. Well, it was gone. It looked like it was the ideal setting for Call of Cthulhu. I like the 20s and 30s myself. I'm really looking forward to Cthulhu by Gaslight. I have heard that they are working on that. Mike Mason has talked about that. Do not know when that's going to drop. Chaosium doesn't really give you a date of when it's going to do. That way, if it's delayed, they don't have to say that they broke any promise. They just say they're working on it, and they'll come to you when it's done. So I like that. I love a good modern day game. I think modern day games add a nice little twist because you've got things like the internet and cell phones, and you get to see kind of how that adds cool aspects. There's a lot of old Call of Cthulhu plots that you can just undo once you have cell phones and the internet. So, but there's a lot of cool plots that you could not do in an old-timey setting. Also, I think for horror, horror is best done modern day because if it's in a historical time period, there is a separation. If it is in your world, in your time, the horror feels a lot more personal. So if you're really wanting to do a good horror Call of Cthulhu game, then I would do modern day. If you're just because I think that is kind of the best background for horror. But I really just dig the 1920s and 30s. Right now, I'm actually rereading the Maltese Falcon, just because I did there was a prequel book. It came out not that long ago, um, called Spade and Archer, which was kind of written about Sam Spade and Archer getting the detective agency together, a little bit about them, and then it kind of ends at the beginning of the Maltese Falcon. So after I was done with that, I was like, well, damn, I'm going to go back to the Maltese Falcon because I love that setting. Of course, the Maltese Falcon was written during that time, while Spade and Archer was written by somebody who was researching that time. So there is that little bit of a difference there that I prefer with that authenticity of somebody who was actually there at the time is writing about what it's really like. Radu Alexander. Question: I'm a traveler game. My players keep wandering away from whatever I prepare for them. Any advice how to keep them on track? It depends on how the type of way they're wandering away. Of course, you can give them some sort of quest or reason that they have to go to a system. I've had it where somebody at a starport comes up and is like, "Hey, I know this isn't normal, but I'll pay you this amount if you carry the shipment to this system because we really want to get it there." And kind of basically, you throw enough money at them that it encourages them. That way, they're getting paid more than they would if they actually went out looking for it. And also, they don't have to make any rolls. This person basically walks up and offers it to them. But once they get down on the planet or at the station or wherever the actual adventure is, man, players are going to wander. And I find it is a lot harder to try to figure out exactly where they're going to go in modern and sci-fi games than in fantasy games, where you've kind of it's a lot easier to kind of keep them confined in the dungeon or in the town versus in a setting where they can literally just hop in a car or a plane or a spaceship and just go wherever the hell they like. So really, I kind of look at the types of adventures you are to see what you can do that could kind of encourage them to stay there. But I don't know. It's kind of a weirdly vague question, so I can't really say specifically, what to do. I just kind of changed how I did it. We did a campaign. I guess it lasted about 8, 9 months. That was entirely the adventure Islands in the Rift, which is like a little 30-page module that I blew up into this campaign where uh, they have to pick up a spy ship that's essentially a school bus. It's this huge, hulking, slow, janky spy ship, and they have to go through the system of the island subsector, and it's very Cold War. It's outside the Imperium, so there's all these kind of little rival factions going on. It's got a lot of great history, and with that one, they knew that they had to leave one planet to get to another that was on the far side, and so to kind of encourage what they're going to do, their navigation computer said, "This is the path that the navigation computer suggests." Due to safety, they don't have to do basically 5 jump 1s across a gulf because that is not safe. So, like, we recommend that you do 8 or however many it was jump 1s, but there's several planets along the way because that's safer. And but then I just asked the players, uh, you need to tell me what your flight path is because I will build the adventures along that way. But if I prepare little adventures on each individual planet and then you decide to go this way and you never go that way, I just wasted a lot of time preparing it. So I would rather prepare for where it is I know you're going to go. That way I'm not wasting my time. Once you get there, you've got a better adventure waiting for you. So I did have a list of kind of scenarios or adventures or cool little things that I wanted to do, but a lot of them I left either vague, like I could drop this in on any of them, or there were ones where it's like I could do this on this world or in this system, either or, just depending on where they go. And they were pretty good about following the recommended path, but they went off a couple times. And so really with that, find out where it is they're planning on going. Verify with them, because if you just hand them an open world and say, "Where do you want to go?" They're going to go whatever direction they want to. And if you have prepared another direction, they're not going to go that way. Or if you spend a lot of time preparing for 6 different directions and they do choose one, you might have wasted a lot of time working on 5. So go ahead, get a flight plan from them, kind of get an idea. If you do want to kind of push them a direction, have a reason to push them, such as somebody offers them a job. Of course, there's always mechanical issues that might send them down somewhere, or in my case, the navigation computer recommends this path. Hopefully that helps. Mr. Biofan12. Big fan. Well, I know it's right there in your name. Question. I run Call of Cthulhu Starter Box, now looking to start a campaign with Session Zero soon. Do you have any suggestions for a campaign plot? And I'm a big fan of episodics where you do one adventure and then you do another. The big one that we did with Call of Cthulhu started out with they went to Dead Light. It was all through Miskatonic University. So they were all linked to it somehow. Then Edge of Darkness, the former professor. Cracked and Crooked Manse was about a professor of archaeology, which that were great because archaeology was what one of the PCs did, who his family had been on the board of Miskatonic for ages and ages and ages. So he was really involved in that department. And then we just wove a bunch of them together. I find that works a lot better than trying to commit to a long-running campaign, especially if you're new at it. I wouldn't recommend that if you're new to the game and you're still kind of feeling your way through it, to suddenly jump onto something like Mass Nyarlathotep or Horror on the Orient Express, because those are huge. So I would try a bunch of little short adventures. Maybe give the group an organization that they belong to, some sort of hub where they go back to the club or something like that, and then kind of spoke out. I did the Modern Mythos podcast that I do with John Hook. We have an episode talking about investigator organizations. I also put them on YouTube, but it is a podcast. And John and I actually talked about several different ways that you could do an investigator organization where it basically sends them out to do different adventures. That way you could do more of an episodic campaign, because that's really what I recommend if you're new to the system. But however you decide to do it, good luck. Dice Skull Studios. Question: have you a chance to look at the new Fallout RPG by Modifius? No, I haven't looked at it. Carson Smith, do I throw in references to my literary work in the RPGs I gave Master? No. It's weird. I actually just did an interview about that, and I got questioned about that like yesterday morning. But I don't, though. I have used things from our RPG games that have gone into my books and stories. For example, the Birth of the Black Raven, which was the start of the entire Black Raven series. Hold on, I've got it here somewhere. So the first story in here was modeled after a D&D game that I ran. I had to, I changed quite a bit of it, but kind of the general premise was a game that I did. Then in Ibanez, the monsters in this book, the Screamers, were something that I came up with in a Call of Cthulhu game, and they absolutely freaked my players out. It was a huge hit how much they were terrified of those little things. So I put them in a novel. So I don't put my novels in my games, but I do put my games in my novels. So there you go. Let's see, Sean Vieira. Oh, thank you for the $6.99. First year's payment for using Bonesaw in my campaign. You don't got to pay me, man. Being a GM is about stealing the good ideas. It's greatly enriched my game. Any more Bonesaw Peanut Head War stories? I actually have one more that I want to do. It's not as kind of long or as the first one was, but that one, I got to introduce the concept of the Bonesaw and where that character came from. Was from some massively drunk dude. But there was one other just wonderful memory we had with the Bonesaw that I need to do. Now, the sword that I used in the video is a friend of mine's, because I have swords, but I needed one with a scabbard and none of mine has scabbards. Or at least none of my broadsword doesn't. And I didn't want to use a rapier for the bone saw, so I had to borrow his sword just so I could do the gag where I was talking about the silence spell they put in it. So I think he has loaned that to his son-in-law. So I'm gonna like have to get him to get it back from his son-in-law so I can get it and I'll film it. I'll get to it eventually, but there is at least one more Bonesaw story that I think is good enough to put in a video. The rest of them I think would be more like 5-second videos. I feel like, this happened and the Bonesaw said this and we all laughed. And then quite a bit of them are let's just say, NSFW, and I don't want to make a video about some of the ridiculousness of the bone saw. But yeah, so you have one more that you'll look forward to. No idea when I'll do it. It could be next month. It could be 2 years from now. I kind of play it by ear. The next one I want to do is actually next war story I'm pretty sure I'll try is one over the Swansons, and it's actually over kind of a dynamic duo of characters that we we're still playing them, but that we're pretty much just kicked down the door epic characters from a pair of players that are not big role players, and somehow they ended up just knocking it out of the park by doing kind of a the straight man crazy man, Laurel and Hardy or The Odd Couple or Billy and Buddy Cop movie sort of routine that was completely unprepared, and they just fell into it, and it was a thing of beauty. So I think that'll be my next war story. Let's see. Fallen 7x7 or 7x7. Question: have I read Blood Meridian? I have not read Blood Meridian. I've never read Cormac McCarthy, but I do know who wrote it. But no, I haven't read it. Sorry. Question: have I read / reviewed / paid any of the Aliens Colonial Marines source books from free? No, I haven't. I haven't played Alien in a while. We want to get back to it. We're just busy playing other stuff. I do have the PDF for the Colonial Marines stuff. I shot through it at high speed, but didn't really read it just because I knew that we weren't going to be playing it for a long time. So I've got it. One day I might play it, and if I do, I'll review it. Michael Buckingham, thank you for the $5. Considering how popular superhero media is right now, what are some superhero RPG systems not played a lot? I have no idea. I've never really been drawn to superhero RPGs. It's just not my thing. I always hear people talking about mutants and masterminds and all that. None of them have ever called to me as something that I really want to do. So, sorry. Harrison Smith, do you throw in references? No, I already read this. I'm going up and down. But evidently, Carson, I really just want to answer that question over and over again. A.B. Coates, weirdest movie you will admit to watching. Whoa, man, if you give me 5 minutes, I could probably come up with a really good answer. But, off the top of my head, From Beyond? Oh, no. Oh, God, what was that? Society. 1980s movie Society. That was a weird damn movie. It is so 1980s it hurts. Like it is painfully 1980s in the glorious way. So enjoyed that. I recently watched, I want to say it was Icelandic gamers type movie. I could not even begin to remember the name of it. It was after the game shop that the characters worked at. That was also weird, but it was a lot like the Gamers, if you ever saw that old movie, but from Iceland. So that was weird. But I'm going to say Society is a movie that I don't mind admitting I watched it, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. So, but if you watch it, don't judge me. Benjamin Bliss. What do you think about the Cthulhu campaign, Orient Express? How would I transfer it? I don't know. I haven't read it. You showed up late. I already talked about that one. I have not run it yet. So hopefully one day I will. after Eldritch Gone, and I've spent some time on the Orient Express. I don't think I'll be able to get out of running that one because my wife's going with me, and she is insistent that we play that afterwards. Oh, Max Rider, Troll Hunter. I've never seen Troll Hunter. I know I'm failing you, brother, but I never saw it. We were all. Oh, and what are you doing here? Am I an avid reader and subscriber to the magazine Strange But True? Okay, so for those of you that enjoy listening to Gabe's, the How We Roll podcast, I've been playing with them, Flotsam and Jetsam, and we're playing that little campaign where the characters work for a 1920s magazine, Strange But True, and I highly recommend. I think the last episode or first adventure just finally dropped. That Frida May is my favorite Call of Cthulhu character of all time. It is worth listening for just Frida. It broke my heart. We actually ended up recording. It was this little side scene. Nothing important was going on, but Frida May pretty much just owned it for about 5 minutes. This breakfast we had eating pie, and that definitely the recording of that scene had cut out, and they were kind of sad about that. But definitely check out the How We Roll. We're currently on our second adventure with those characters. It is a lot of fun, so definitely check that out. Astra's Night. The Adventure is a homebrew that I've thought would fit Fat Call of Cthulhu. After watching your reviews, thought down the line I want to run Armored Angel into Disassociation, as I feel those two adventures would go great together. Yeah, actually, I think it would. I mean, Armored Angels is clearly an old timer, and thank you for the $20. My God. Armored Angels was a lot of fun. I can't reach it. I can't get up. So my players actually kept as payment one of the armored Rolls Royces. So I actually picked up one of the armored Rolls Royce cars, the cars from yesteryear that we use with our group. So that was a fun adventure. And Dissociation, man, that thing was a blast. If you want, you could do that as 1920s or 30s. Might need to push it back a little bit to 30s. That way, the technology is just a little bit better as far as them hearing stuff over the radio, because they're not able to see it on the news as far as what's going on. But those work great. Dissociation was a cool adventure. We had a lot of fun with that one. Though, if you were going to do that with campaign characters, be prepared for your players to be kind of pissed because the setup on that, if those are characters that they had been playing for a while and they had a lot of hopes and dreams set up on, they might be a little upset of what happens to them. Now, if you have maimed and scarred and brutalized them, and then you do dissociation, they end up coming out of that one better, once everything happens, then maybe they'll enjoy it. But just a little word of warning, if you would have worked that one into a campaign, I wouldn't want you to try it and all of a sudden your players revolt on you. Man, I am not going to pronounce this right. I deeply apologize. Sonar Dimmer? Dimir? You've got the letter that looks like a C, but it's not a C, and I have no idea how to pronounce it. Question: any chance the characters from Beholder story coming back? Man, if I come up with a good one, the Beholder story came about because I sometimes just run through just goofy dialogues in my head, and I think I was like opening up the freezer one day, and I suddenly went off on that big thing about how beholders don't have buttholes because there's no room for all their guts, and I was just kind of running with that, kind of laughing at myself. And the whole video just kind of came out of this just brain fart sort of thing. And I don't want to do another video using that kind of same gag if I don't have kind of some inspiration where I'm like, oh man, I got to do this. Otherwise, it's just not going to be as good. It's going to feel kind of forced and fake. If I wanted to do one, let's say over like the origin of the gelatinous cube or something like that, I don't want to I don't want to like take away from the beholder video by kind of trying to copy it badly. So I would love to redo it. I've still got all those wigs and stuff, and would like to have a opportunity to do my really interesting Gygax reinterpretation. So yeah, that'd be fun. I'd like to use them, but I want to use them for something that I think they would be best suited for on a video. I think would be fun. I was kind of amazed that beholder video did not garner like as much traffic as I had originally envisioned. But on the flip side, it didn't garner all the hate that I was also envisioning. So give and take. Because I was actually expecting some anger about that one from you know some players that felt like I was being mean or something. I don't know. I was envisioning certain ones being like garnering hate. It didn't, so that was great. But yeah, didn't get as many watches as I was like assuming it would. So I have no idea. I don't know how any of this stuff works. I never know what's going to be popular or what's going to be hated. Let's see. Oh, let's see. 31B Cooter. Have I leave $5? Seth, I have a campaign of running, talking to my party into Innsmouth. Any tips? Man, I love Innsmouth, man. It's freaking great. Um, Check out if you can find it, and it's really hard to find. The Escape from Innsmouth book is wonderful for just giving a lot of details and a lot of things you might not have ever considered about the town itself. There's a adventure and a campaign with it, but just the information on the town itself is rather fascinating. And I used a lot of that in A Mother's Love because that was taking place in Innsmouth, and I was told that I had to be canonical with the Call of Cthulhu Innsmouth material that was out there. So a lot of stuff I hadn't considered before, like how the police would work, how the telephone operator is always listening in and could kind of work to prevent people from calling too much information out of town or working as a spy. It's a good book. The big thing with Innsmouth is you want to show the decrepitness of it. Building roofs caving in. And if your players are familiar with the story that it's based on, they are probably going to go charging toward the Deep Ones and the Order of Dagon and all that stuff. So I'd recommend that if you send them to Innsmouth, kind of circumvent that by not doing it about Deep Ones the first time. Like literally have it be this decrepit town that's got a weird cult, and then don't even go into it. Like have whatever your adventure is, not have those at all. They're obviously there's going to be Deep Ones hybrids everywhere, but it doesn't focus on them. You could do it to where the players actually go to Innsmouth several times. Maybe they're visiting some contact that they have there. Maybe there's like some old librarian or collector that's got some mythos tomes, and they maybe periodically go back to Innsmouth to get some more information, and they do some little stuff around there, and then you kind of work your way up to revealing what's really going on in Innsmouth. Because otherwise, I think if you show that a little bit too early, it's really just going to become oh, it's Deep Ones again. So if you kind of build up toward it, that could be fun, especially if your players are familiar with what's going on in Innsmouth, because it's a freaking 100-year-old story at this point. If you kind of subvert that expectation and have the fact that they're all Deep Ones not be a thing that's ever really mentioned or is ever involved with, that way when all of a sudden you pull it in, it suddenly becomes like, oh my God. Because you could have it where they have befriended different people in town that they trust, and then their affiliation with the order could come out. You could do it, but that requires a little bit of a long game of working your way toward that. But so I wouldn't kind of spill the beans on what's going on in Innsmouth too quickly. So, but good luck. Max Ryder, any chance of coming to Miskatonic Repository Con next weekend? Sorry, man. I've already got plans for next weekend, but you guys have fun. Jason, what channel is this? Seth Skrzykowski. Why are you on a live stream if you don't know what channel it is? That's people on YouTube are very, very daring, just clicking on anything just to see what it is. That's off. Whoa, here they all came. Things down there. And so that, and the kid gets pulled into the sewers by the clown. My dad read me that opening chapter when I was the same age as the kid that got killed. So books don't really scare me anymore. I think I burned all that out really, really early on in life, which later on when I started writing horror, I remember my dad did ask me, like, where does this come from? I'm like, do you not remember reading me the opening chapter of It when I was like 9? So, but now, there's tons of stuff that become game fuel, but there's a lot of stuff that, I just haven't had a chance to yet. Oh, come on, Chad. Scott Knudsen, $20. My God, man, thank you. But no, we got to do that. I'm trying to get to a lot of people that ask questions or pay money and don't, because I'm trying to keep it kind of fun here. Enjoyed A Mother's Love and your updated Arcturus Station. Man, I'm glad to hear that. I really enjoy getting to work and bring back Arcturus Station. I really enjoyed the Hunt for Saber 4. I would love to hold up my copy. I've got my copy of the module, and I already have it framed on the wall. But then I've got my actual other copy coming in, and it just hasn't arrived yet. That was the one that I got was their kind of print tests that they do, that the printer does, and they send Mongoose like here's some samples of what it's going to look like, and Mongoose sent me one. So I got mine months ago, which it might look a little bit different than the actual print run, but Hunt for Saber 4 was a lot of fun. I was really happy to be able to bring Murder on Arcturus Station back, from this 1980s out of print adventure, update that, and I'm really happy that you liked the mild changes that I did. I tried to keep it as close to the original as I could. My philosophy was if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I was never intending on doing any sort of massive reimagining of it. I just wanted to improve parts of it and make the whole thing work. So I'm glad that you liked it, and hope you enjoy the Hunt for Saber 4. That was a fun one. There may be another old, long out of print traveler adventure that I might have worked on that's going to be announced soon. So, but I have to wait for Mongoose to share that if it happened. But anyways, thank you. We'll check. Thank you for the $4.99. Seth, been following you for years. You did a review video on Cyberpunk Red Starter Kit. What do you think about the final product? I have not had enough time with Cyberpunk Red to formulate a full opinion of it yet. Yes, I have played it. No, I have not run it. And a system that is this big, this is twice the thickness of the original Cyberpunk 2020, or I guess Cyberpunk 2020 was second edition. It's a lot bigger than the books that were in the old box set for 2013. I do have a lot of notes as far as my thoughts about it, as far as different criticisms or praises. I feel that they took a lot of some elements out of the game that I really wish they had kept in, such as it's got a very generic feel as far as medium auto pistol, and that's like it. I get a medium auto pistol, or I get a heavy auto pistol. When used to, you went through this kind of guide that had 9 medium auto pistols, and they were all a little bit different than each other. They might have a plus or minus to hit. They might hold 1 or 2 more bullets than the others. They might be reliable or unreliable. They had different levels of concealability. and they all had these brand names with them, because part of cyberpunk to me is also the naming and the brands, and you get to know stuff like, I use we use Sternmeyer 35s, while you guys use the Militex, or budget arms, and they don't really have that. There's a chart near the back that's got like a list of all the different medium auto pistols. It's like got like 3 or 4 names under each type that your GM could choose. By default, they always come at standard reliability. When you're looking at the list, you're kind of looking at the price and you look at the reliability, and it's all right there. Now, the player would actually have to go out of their way to make an unreliable gun, or your GM would have to create unreliable guns for some, boosters or something to have. So I do feel that it kind of lost a lot of its just style with a lot of those little aspects. Combat is streamlined. I feel that certain parts I might have streamlined a bit too much. I think it relies too much on squares. That's weird to try to play a game with squares. I haven't done that in years. And certain parts I just love. Certain parts I'm not a fan of, and love the new internet. That's great. They fixed the internet issues, that complaints that I always had. But a lot of my criticisms of it, I actually need a little bit more time to play it and decide, are they legitimate criticisms, or is it that I am an old grognard that is just mad that it's not the way that it was back when I was a kid, and they changed it, and I don't like change. So I have to kind of really determine, are my criticisms legitimate? So I want to be able to criticize or critique Cyberpunk Red based off of what it is, and not what it isn't being compared to Cyberpunk 2020. So eventually I'll get to it, but I'm going to need a lot more playtime with it. And it's pretty low on the games that we're playing right now. So since we're enjoying Pulp Cthulhu and Cult at the moment. So eventually I'll get to it, just one day. I've never been known to be really fast at getting to certain stuff. Let's see. Foo Fighters. Sorry, I'm not going to get that right. All those guys, Mike Todd Dweebles. Sure to think about Kevin though. It's difficult coming up with them after so many years. It was a no-brainer. The original the gang was an accident. How those characters came about. I originally had a skit that I wanted to do of a certain interaction that my friends and I had joked about for years, about the 13th Warrior, or Eaters of the Dead, being in a role-playing game where the GM and the group, they're all going to do this Viking campaign. You get this one player, it's like, I want to play this Arab poet that doesn't speak the languages and has no motivations that the campaign calls for. And we kind of did that. So I want to do a skit kind of showing this little back and forth sort of joke my buddies and I have been doing for years. And at the time I still had really long hair, so I just let my hair down, pulled on an old Ramones shirt, put a baseball cap on backwards, and gave myself, the surfer bro voice. And I thought it was fun, so I ended up using that character again a few times. And then eventually, one day I realized I had a video topic where I needed him to interact with other players. So I kind of threw together some other players. Like I went to like a Party City, and there was a bandito facial hair thing, which was a mustache and a goatee. And I bought that, and I gave one of them the mustache and I gave the other one the goatee. I came up with some silly voices for it, and I did a sketch, and ended up bringing them back a few more times. But I used them for like a year or more, where there's old videos. Paranoia, I think, is one. I actually called them player 1, 2, and 3. I never named them. They were just my players. And then enough people kind of asked what their names were that I had to like commit to naming them. Kevin's name came about because there was a commenter that's popped up on a few other videos that would be all like, man, I love the gig, Mike Dweebles and Kevin. Evidently he thought Todd's name was Kevin for whatever reason. And at one point I just wanted to respond with like, who the hell is Kevin? And I've been envisioning the idea of, this fourth player that's just been in the room the whole time, that just kind of speaks up finally, and you've got Todd kind of wondering who the hell this was as everybody else is talking. So I'm like, that's the name I'm going to use because who the hell is Kevin is a line that I'm going to try. So don't know if we'll ever see him again, but just always know that whenever you see the gang, there is a fourth person who may or may not be in the room that's just not speaking up. So. Oh my God. Nombre Generico 1. Question: what's your opinion of the different versions of the RuneQuest / BRP system? BRP is cool. I really like BRP. I am disappointed that the new RuneQuest did not adapt the changes that Call of Cthulhu 7th edition did, where stats went up to a 1 to 100 scale. They remained at that 3 to 18 scale. That means they had to bring back the resistance table. I feel like that was a step backwards. I would have preferred it when 7th edition Call of Cthulhu figured out how to streamline BRP, which is a fantastic system. But after 30 something years, somebody figured out how to make it even better. I feel that it was a kind of a wasted opportunity not to just go ahead and update BRP across with that change, because all the games that use BRP will all put their different spins on it and their own uniquenesses. But I really wish that they had just kind of across the board adapted those changes, because while BRP is fine, it's great, I think that 7th edition just really honed that to perfection. And so when I looked at the new RuneQuest, I felt like it had just taken the step backwards because they had not updated with the Call of Cthulhu mods that they had done. But overall, I think it's a great system. Chaosium prints one product that has a refined, better version of that system, and then it makes another product that's newer that does not have that same refinement. And I just kind of disappointed by that. But hopefully that answers the question. Man, there is a lot of F's going on in the chat. I am not going to be able to pronounce your name. I think it's Cyrillic, so I apologize. Question: do I plan on running more Delta Green content in the future? I don't know. I like Delta Green. I think Delta Green is cool. Bud from Bud's RPG Review has run me through Delta Green. He has been teasing me with running me through another scenario sometime. I think he's a playtester, though. I should probably poke him to make sure that he knows I'm still interested. I like the system, but I don't really feel the calling to swap to that from Call of Cthulhu. If I was going to do a modern day Call of Cthulhu system, I could easily adapt the Delta Green agency or something like that without having to do a game that is mechanically very similar but kind of different. I love the way that Delta Green does the sanity ways, where you've got the different things that kind of ground you. I think that's awesome. And I love lethality with automatic weapons. I think that is freaking great. But at the same time, Delta Green's never been anything I've run out and bought, because I'm already playing Call of Cthulhu, and it just didn't really appeal to me to buy another game that's almost like what I'm playing, but not quite. But is also, when you're playing Delta Green, you're playing Delta Green. When you're playing Call of Cthulhu, you've got large, versatile settings and different things you can do with it. So I just prefer 7e for that, because we like to flip our campaigns around and do different stuff and different themes, versus be committed to where you're always playing Delta Green. So, but once I play some more, yeah, I'll review anything else that I play. Oh, Uchizo. Hey, thanks for 49. No questions, so hopefully you were do that. Tyrannium, thoughts on Pathfinder 2e or Genesis? No thoughts. Don't not my jam. Don't have a real appeal to read them. So I know people that play it like it. So, but I'm not the best one to ask. Okay, this is actually a really good question. Nerdy Pro, I know you've mentioned before, like more of a point by system instead of a class based. Do you prefer theme based games or something more vague like GURPS or Hero? Um, yeah, I prefer a skill based game where your characters have just there's no class. You're not like a fighter or a thief. You have an occupation. You buy skills. You might fall into different archetypes, but there's no first level, second level, third level. I like the versatility of that. I love it when those skills go up as you use them individually, like BRP does. So that's my favorite. I I don't mind a theme to the game, but I also sometimes reject them and I want to pull it out. That was always like my issue back in the day when D&D had 5 million settings. Is that it was like, oh, I really like this setting, and the first thing I want to do is something different with it. Um, and certain games, I think, are too tied into their setting that you do lack some versatility, or they might feel limited. Kind of like I was mentioning about Delta Green earlier. Alien is another one. It's a great game if you want to play a game that feels exactly like you're an Alien movie. I think Free League knocked that out of the park. Which hold on, got that here. This game is phenomenal if you want to play like you're in an Alien movie. It's very cinematic in that way, but at the same time, you're kind of limited to that, and that would quickly bore me because I would want to try something else. I would feel very restrained. So I do like a theme, like I talk a lot about. I've loved Call of Cthulhu. I've loved Cyberpunk. I've liked a lot of that, but I still want it to be very open. Kind of like Traveler. I love Traveler, but Traveler you can just kind of throw away the Imperium setting and just make up your own universe, and it wouldn't affect the game in the least. So I do like really cool worlds that RPGs can do, but I also don't want to have one where it feels like I'm very constrained by it. Um, as far as the difference between like class and level based, I mean to do a video just on that topic. I don't know how well I can articulate a lot of it, so that's part of the big reason I haven't done it yet. I actually was planning on maybe doing that as my next video, and then I realized like I'm not going to be able to articulate this as well. It would really come off as like some sort of hot take. Um, and I don't like that because I think level based actually have a lot of really cool benefits that you don't get with the skill based. So I want to be able to talk about these are the differences between them. There's a lot of like there's not like a set way that they're always like this, they're always like that because games are always different. But on the overall, the difference between them when you can kind of take games and see what category it falls into, because there's a couple that actually kind of fall somewhere in the middle, um, and kind of the benefits of both. But one, my biggest level based game experience I have is Dungeons and Dragons. So then I realized like I'm really just comparing everything to D&D when there are a lot of other level based games out there. So I don't want to make it just about D&D versus everything else because uh, I feel that's not really a fair comparison if I'm only using one game, even if I'm using multiple editions of the same game, because older editions of D&D are nothing like the current edition. But I like to have a little bit more to reference when it comes to those types of games. I'm not sure if that answered your question. I just rambled for 3 minutes. Okay, Aiden Walker. When running a medieval fantasy campaign, the PCs of a long term sorcerer enemy, I don't want them to just appear for battle. Any more recommendations to make a better confrontation? Oh, wow, that is so vague. I don't know if I could give you any answers that would remotely help you. Uh, if it depends on what role the sorcerer has. If he is like the evil sorcerer ruler of the kingdom, you of course can have a lot of minions that he is talking through. You can have it where a sorcerer might be possessing somebody at certain times. You can have it to where the sorcerer it was a thing on Beastmaster. If you remember the little cool freaking eyeball ring in Beastmaster, where it's talking and it's communicating with the people that have this ring. As far as the minions, you can have little aspects like that. 'Cause, yeah, you don't want your sorcerer just to appear, throw a lightning bolt or something like that, and then just disappear in a puff of smoke. Um, so you might have to have a lot more uh, influences that the wizard has, because also if you have the wizard appear, your player characters are probably going to go charging in to kill him. And if you don't want them to kill him, then all of a sudden you've got to make a plausible way that they don't. Such as disappears to puff of smoke. That can kind of irritate players if they feel like you're constantly throwing them in a situation where they get beat on by the guy and he just conveniently vanishes. So but meanwhile, if you have it to where he has this influence because he is in some crystal that some minions are carrying and directing it, and they can smash the crystal to stop his influence there. It's like some sort of crystal ball or something like that they are hoisting around. They can smash that to remove him from that place, even if they know that nothing will go through and hit the guy, because he does that because nobody can hit him if he does it that way. Players are actually, in my experience, more inclined to accept that. As far as the first thing we need to do is we need to destroy that crystal. That way that dude can't be doing stuff to us while we're doing whatever our mission is, versus if you have the wizard himself walking around with the bad guys, the PCs direct all their fire and spells and arrows and swords at this guy, and he just somehow keeps getting out of it and living, and they know it's because you're kind of teleporting him away conveniently. That can bother them unless you have a very plausible in-game reason, such as he is projecting himself astrally. He's possessing somebody. So while he is walking around in the body of this other person and is effectively fully functional, his real body is somewhere in his stronghold under protection. And if they kill this guy who is possessing the spirit, then just moves to that other body. And then you can make the quest be like, you got to get a way to either get to that body or capture that spirit. And once we capture the spirit and it can't get to the body will die. But I'd try something like that. I don't know. Depends on what the game it is and how the campaign works and just what all you guys like. Jorge Rapero, I did Ladybug Fly Away Home. First time as DM. Thanks for your review. It helps a lot. I'm glad. That was a fun adventure. I enjoyed that one. I got to do that one with the Into the Darkness podcast. So I actually got to play that one. I think that was actually was that my first time I actually got to play Call of Cthulhu as a player? It might have been. So that I'm pretty sure that was actually my first time as a player. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Tower House Creative, have I published anything with Chaosium? Not yet, but I'll emphasize the yet, and that's all I'm allowed to say. Carson Smith, what type of horror appeals to you as an author? Man, that depends. My impression of what horror is kind of different than I think most people. I've always leaned into darker aspects of fantasy that I think a lot of people call horror that I don't think of as horror. A lot of the classic fantasies were pretty, not just with big monsters and violence and gore, but they just had a lot of darker elements to them. So what I like in horror is the feeling of vulnerability and the feeling of hopeless or helplessness, where the hero is truly at risk and they don't feel like the big tough badass that can take out the monsters. So those are my favorite types of horror, versus something like Monster Hunters Incorporated, which is about them being big tough badasses going out and taking down werewolves with, in 60s or something. Well, cool isn't really horror to me, though. Korea can pull in some cool horror elements when he wants to. He actually is real good about taking it from, you know, big, badass, it's the Expendables with monsters, to all of a sudden a horror moment. But those are kind of real rare in his books. Not all of his books in that series have it. So the vulnerability is the big thing. I also do prefer a modern day to the setting versus that separation. And the other way that I can get past that, though, is if the book was written for modern day, but time has passed, such as, I enjoy The Devil Rides Out. Don't really consider horror by my means, but, it's quaint in the 1930s because it was written in the 1930s. Or I can still enjoy a lot of Barker stories, even though they were written in the 80s and 90s, and they still have that same impact to me because I guess the book was kind of a time capsule from that time. It was meant to be modern day at the time. Oh, jeez. I have no idea how you pronounce that, but sorry. Yes, I did have a question. When you're writing your first novel, how hard was the publishing process for you? Well, my first novel was so hard that book will never see the light of day. As is its sequel that was 75% written before I finally had an editor very kindly explain to me that my first book taught me how to write, but it was crap. And now that I should take the lessons that they taught me of learning how to write and write something else, and I finally was able to put that book aside and write something new. And that was shortly when I wrote Dameron after that. By the way, the editor was Lou Anders, and actually Lou just put out some fifth edition material. Wonderful, wonderful man. Absolutely, changed the course of my life. And every time I try to explain that to him, he just downplays it. But so after I met with him and he told me that my first 1.75 novels were unpublishable crap and I should just take the lessons of how to write that they gave me and move on, I started Dameron the next week. And the publishing process, I was rejected 82 times, or was it the 82nd that I got accepted? It was over 80 times that was rejected. It was brutal. It was absolutely terrible to go through the publishing process of, you're querying agents and editors. A lot of times you never hear back from them. So they're like, if you don't hear back from us in 8 weeks, consider it a rejection. But there's this kind of little thread in you that even though it's like 9 weeks, 10 weeks long, it's like, well, maybe they just haven't gotten to it yet. Maybe they'll still approve it. That is brutal. And I hate it. I hate querying a novel more than just about any freaking thing dealing with writing is the process of trying to get it published. It was easier when I did Ashes of Onyx because on that one I still had to query it because my old publisher had gone away due to gross mismanagement, and I went back on the hunt to go get an agent. So I queried a bunch of agents. I was originally thinking the fact that I had, at that point, 4 novels and then 2 short story collections out. 2 of my novels were Audio Award finalists for Best Audiobook, which is a really great industry award. So I mean, it was like, hey, people like this stuff. People that do these type of award things like my stuff, and I thought it'd be a lot easier. I guess a lot easier is subjective. I think that one got rejected about 40 times before I got an agent for that book, and so it is horrible. Horrible. It took a long time. I think Dameron. I think I sent my first query out in March, and I was accepted right before Thanksgiving. So it was a constant stream of sending out queries. Ashes of Onyx, it was about half as long before I got accepted. So it's hard. It's brutal. Writing query letters sucks. I kind of did a whole thing where you send 10 out at a time. I had this spreadsheet that I kept it very organized at. They periodically have to update the query letter because if I'm not getting enough hits, it's obviously not catchy enough to get enough hits. And you, of course, look into a lot of agents and editors before you query them. Sometimes even on their website, they say, this is what I'm looking for. And like, I'm looking for fantasy. And you're like, oh, great, I'll send them that. But then if you Google them and you find interviews, they'll say, I only want romantic fantasy or young adult fantasy, or I only want classic fantasy with dragons and swords and knights and stuff. And if that's not what you write, then if you query them because they have on their website that they do fantasy and it's not the right type, you're going to get rejected. And that's wasting your time, their time. You're putting all your hopes into them accepting it, and that was never going to be a possibility. So always Google every agent or editor that you're sending it to, even if all of the trade stuff says that they represent what it is that you're selling by large genre. Find out exactly what direction of genre it is that they represent, because they might not actually hit your niche, because a lot of them are really doing romance and young adults, like a lot of them. So if you want non-romance or young adult, it's best to just verify that. So but good luck if that's what you're doing. I feel for you. Toyo1. Have I played Savage Worlds? I haven't. Sorry. In all honesty, if you've never seen a review for it, just consider me. I probably haven't played it or played enough to really give you a solid opinion one way or the other. No idea what conversation's going on, but I see Max Ryder says, what about Monster Squad? Monster Squad was awesome, especially because I was the same age as those kids the first time I saw that movie. So, it was a lot more like my people. Bradwolf54, thank you for $5. Just started the 4th Valdekin book. Any chance a 5th is on the way? I would like to do a 5th. If you're doing Redemptor right now, Redemptor was the shortest. I think Redemptor is actually the best. My writing craft, I think, was had improved. It definitely improved between Dameron and Redemptor. I really like it. I actually really enjoy that when people say which one is their favorite, because it's kind of like all over the board. I've had people tell me each individual book has been somebody's favorite. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a bit different. I did more of an ensemble for that one versus kind of like how I did Venus, where it was an ensemble versus book 1s or 2, where it's all in the point of view of one character and we follow them specifically. At this point, we're actually head hopping. And Redemptor was fun because I got to pull in the church knights for that one. And I've been looking forward to running them for a while. And I absolutely love the character Felisa. I love May. They're great. And I dig the bad guy in that one. He was fun. Level up question. How have you organized your notes for larger campaigns, i.e. Two-Headed Serpent? I usually have a rough idea where it's going to go, just because I, read, a couple chapters ahead of where we are. But I really just keep it, per what the next adventure is. I just treat it like I would any other. You just need to know a few steps ahead of where stuff's going to go. Sometimes you want to lay a little bit more foreshadowing. Because the PCs might go a different direction than the adventure originally did, or you might come up with a better way to foreshadow something coming up ahead. But I don't just have the notes for an entire campaign book like I would a single adventure, because that's so much. So when I did Two-Headed Serpent, of course I knew what chapter 1 and chapter 2. Chapter 2 is kind of the living chapter, because they're always going to be returning to New York. There's a lot of stuff that could happen with that, and you have to kind of keep that free. And then you want to keep track of keep the one in your pocket where they wake up with amnesia, because that could drop in at any time, and be ready to try to foreshadow that, because they might go through that door at any point. So, but mostly my notes are primarily over the New York chapter, and then whatever the next adventure was going to be, and just kind of played it by ear. I, of course, read through it once, so I knew what the larger picture was, and I could adapt. But that's about it. And it changes per campaign to campaign because all of them are so different that method might not work if something like Mass Nyarlathotep, um, just because Mass is so more sandboxy because the first adventure happens, they get the clues that could then send them to all the different places. So with that one, the big thing you want to do is have a basic understanding of what all those places are, and then end the game when they tell you where they're going to go. So you do New York, they find their clues, and you basically have them say like, where are you going? Because that's why I want to have that prepared for you. But if they find the clues and then you come back the next session and they then decide to say we're going here, then to prepare for that you would have had to have prepared all of the choices all the way through. So I kind of mentioned this before with the traveler one. Get their flight plan. But between games, find out where it is they're planning on going and prepare for that. But it does require that you know when to end the session, or if they announce we are going to England. It's like, okay, great. The boat's not going to leave for another week. What do you want to do in town to get ready? And you kind of play through that, but you do need to end it before they go so you can prepare for that. Versus you just kind of start the game and then they tell you that, and now you're scrambling trying to keep up. So it's not really a recommendation, but good luck. Thurgosh. Did I ever try Dark Conspiracy? Future sort of Cthulhu game from 1901? Never. Never tried Eclipse Phase. Once again, if I haven't reviewed it, probably haven't played it, or at least haven't played enough to have an opinion of it. Carson Smith, where's Kevin? He's here. He's always here. Let's see. How long are we into this thing? Like an hour and a half. I should probably start wrapping this up soon. As I mentioned Kevin, and I suddenly fell back into my Warburton voice. Gorilla Cannon, any tips for GMing insanity? Man, I have actually thought about doing an entire video just on that subject because I have the Call of Cthulhu series over the insanity rules. I was thinking about like I might need to do one where it's like literally just playing it. And I might be able to pull in some pieces from other games out there and how they handle that. I have found the most effective ways to do insanity are if you know information about the character, such as uh, someone that they cared about that's dead, or certain things like that that you can pull into their insanity, such as they're getting a call on the phone from their long dead friend, or when we did the derelict, and there was the invisible monster hunting him down. One of them had his bout of madness, and he started having delusions that the satellite phone rang, and it was somebody that was in a helicopter that was outside looking for a place to land. So they were actually all barricaded up, and all of a sudden he's like, "They're here," and nobody could hear the helicopter, but he could hear the helicopter. He could hear it through the phone. He could hear it outside, and he knocked down the barricades, went running out on the deck, waving his arms, trying to call the helicopter down. That was just completely a delusion. But I think the best ways of doing insanity is if you do it for the specific character and you tailor it for that. Those have been our best. That is all going to relate to knowing the character's backstory. Backstory 201 is the tentative title for it. That's actually going to be my next video I'm going to do, is we're going to revisit backstories, bring up a few points and a couple little techniques that I just either hadn't thought of, didn't know, or didn't have room for on my first backstory video. But the big point on that one has to deal with essentially it's a questions that you ask your player when they give you the character, and then you do updates to. That is, to me, more important than a backstory. To do insanity, how they answer those questions is how you want to do it, because that's where they list stuff like, what is your biggest fear? What is your darkest secret? What is your biggest regret? Who or what do you care about most? Those sort of things like that, where you know the character's personality and you can tailor insanity toward it. Tess Farrell. Oh, thank you for €10. I hope you didn't have a question and it sent before you hit the question. And then Tyrannium. Do I have a live show where I play RPG with friends? No. We don't record our games. Game days are our days to be a bunch of dorks and not have a care outside the room or any responsibilities to the world except for us being old friends having a great time. Having a camera in the room would detract from that. Having to split attention to pay attention to sound, audio, and video, and all that crap that would detract from it because those are pulling everyone's attention on something that isn't the game itself. And we want to have game days for us, so we don't record it. It's pretty unanimous. So pretty unanimous. No, it's totally unanimous. None of us want to do it. So even if somebody somehow managed to talk me into it, my players want to go along with it. So no, not my thing. Am I doing Patrick Warburton for Kevin? Max Ryder? Yes, that actually really wasn't my best Warburton. I think because I had to, each sentence was a different take, and each take like 5 takes because I have to make 80 takes of everything I do because I never do it right on the first 79. Kevin was originally going to have a different voice. He's going to talk like this, kind of like Cartman and Quaaludes or something. And I thought it was too stupid of a voice because I didn't like that for Kevin. So basically, at the last second, I'm like, I'm going to give him a Warburton, and I kind of went with a voice like this, where it wasn't. They didn't make him sound like he was an idiot. He was just a guy that had some problems in the game, and just wanted to express those to the game master. So that was kind of a last second. I'll use my Warburton impersonation voice for him. So there you go. Sounds way better than Plan A, which I'd been Plan A for a while. Stephen Pine, thoughts on the Underdark? Fucking love it. Always been a big Underdark fan. We did an Underdark campaign back when we were playing 3.5. And then through Magic and Sorcery, it somehow becomes 2nd edition again because we preferred it. So we've done Underdark campaigns. I enjoy it. I have I think I showed it in my Enhancing Your Handouts video. They were pirates in the subterranean seas of the Underdark. So the idea was, these world-spanning cave systems of, where they're flooded. There's boats going across it. So they were essentially pirates on the black seas of the Underdark. And there are different port towns that were set up, sometimes inside of stalactite, or stalagmite towers coming out of the water that had little windows in them and stairs and docks built around them, and different stuff like that, because there isn't a whole lot of wood in the Underdark. So it's like, using different fungi and different stuff like that, or bone, to substitute for a lot of the wood, because wood was at a premium down there. And yeah, it was fun. You had, one character that was the creatures that are blind. It's all through sound, and that was the campaign where the Bonesaw actually came back. And the character that was whatever race it was that's blind and can hear, he could hear Bonesaw in his scabbard, so he could hear this sword nonstop. It drove him nuts. And in the Seed of the Bonesaw video, where I have one of the guys is like, I'm sneaking up on the guy really slowly, and then I'm going to quietly pull my sword out, like he forgot what sword he had, and the Bonesaw just started yelling whatever he was talking about. That was all part of that Underdark campaign. So big fan of it. So yeah. And I tell you what, we are getting close to that 2-hour mark. So somebody can start wrapping this up soon. Was Kevin originally Dweebles' name? No, it wasn't. But then again, if it was, I wouldn't tell you. Request more real Gygax skits. I talked about that one earlier. I would love to do another one of those, but I just need to have one that I think is a suitable follow-up, versus I'm just kind of throwing one together just to have another one with that character. I'd like to have one uh, that I don't know. I think is a good video. So I want to have a good topic, some good jokes, and then we can add the aspect that I'm going to do my coked out guy gags. Is there any way to make planning less time consuming, like planning a heist prison break? My team has spent literal hours trying to come up with a perfect plan. Well, I have a whole video talking about heists. So different ways that you can speed it up, short of changing systems to something like Blades in the Dark. If you wanted to use just whatever game system it is you want to play, you can start them off with some of the stuff pretty easy to access as far as provided. As far as these are probably the 3 best ways to do it. Choose among this, and then let them plan based off of that information, versus if you give them the general information if they're in prison and they have to go through the whole process of figuring out where the weaknesses are and trying to get out. Well, yes, that is awesome. That is extremely time consuming. So if you want to make that a little bit faster, you maybe have them bump into some guy on the inside who's like, man, I've been working on this for months, and I've already got the guards rotations set up, and I know that there is a blind spot along the perimeter. The trick is we got to get to the blind spot, but once we can get there, we can get over the wall. Or there's like these 3 ways I'm considering it, but I can't do it alone. I need a team. And so basically, this NPC provide like, here is some direction, and that can speed it up, especially if that direction comes with a lot of the research into certain directions already done for them. I'd recommend trying something like that. Of course, anybody mentions heist, they always have to mention Blades in the Dark, which I haven't played, but I've heard how the mechanic works. Sounds really cool. But otherwise, if you do leave it so open on a heist or breakout where they have to formulate the entire plan from nothing and figure out where all the weaknesses points are and everything on their own, it's going to take them a long time. The other one is you can give your players a time limit. Once they've got all the information that they need, you can pretty much say like, "Okay, guys, we need to start this in the next hour." You might need to have an in-game reason why they can't wait forever, because if they're in prison and that's a 20-year term, they can take that whole time coming up with a plan. You need to come up with a reason why they need to get out in the next month or whatever, just because if they don't, the bad guy is going to get away with whatever the bad guy's trying to do. And that puts a little fire under them. So it's good to have a time limit both in and outside the game. But outside the game, because they can get analysis paralysis where they talk about the plan for hours and they never do anything, partially because they're afraid of making the wrong choice. So they put it off by talking about it. They avoid the game by talking about the game. So it kind of depends. But those are a few tricks that we've done, and they've worked pretty well. Diesel 419. When I'm writing, do I work on one at a time or multiple simultaneously? I also find that I can't keep my mind on a story long enough to finish. I have to work on at least 2 stories. I do one at a time, except for when I can't. What that means is sometimes when you're working on a long story, like a novel, you will have a part where, and it's always the most simple thing. When you're reading a book, you will never know that the most simple segue between scenes, some author toiled for a week to figure out how to get that little simple segue to happen. And you get stuck trying to figure out some detail. I have done it where I will knock out a short story on the side. In fact, pretty much the bulk of the Black Raven series was written that way, to where I was working on a novel, and then I get stuck, so I'd knock out another adventure with Aaron and do that, and then get back to my main story that I was working on. I've never done anything like 2 novels at the same time, but I have done little short stories that I'll do to get either a story out of my system so I could go back to focusing on the big one that I want to tell, or just as a way to kind of jumpstart. Because the Black Raven stuff was always like fast paced and exciting. So I wanted to do something that was fast paced and exciting, like do some action, and then I could go back to my, novel that had more of a slow build up and different things like that. So yes, I would do it, but it was never really planned. It was just kind of like a release mechanism versus I had to work on two at the same time or anything. Hyperbug, do I play video games? If so, what type do I play? I do not play video games as much as I used to. When I started writing seriously, video games are such a time sink that something had to go in order to get enough room for it, and it didn't hurt the fact that my computer was so janky and old, it was having trouble with all the new games, but it could handle Microsoft Word, so I could play I could write without having to upgrade my system. Uh, when I do get to play video games, I'm a huge fan of stuff like Hitman and that sort of deal. I don't like big online games because sometimes I just want to get on, I want to play for an hour and be done, or I don't want to screw off. I don't want to deal with all the drama of playing with a bunch of other people on headsets. So I prefer a little story game like that. I started the Resident Evil 8 a few months ago, got like a few days into it, left it to work its else and never got back to it. So it's like been a couple months. I'm pretty sure if I got back to it, I have to figure out how to operate the controls again. So the most recent video game I played other than that is I did play Cyberpunk 2077. That was pretty much my entire month of April. But I do enjoy games like that. Usually a bit more action, but also single person play. I used to love the hell out of Left 4 Dead, but only on the campaign play, not online. But I'm not a good enough gamer to deal with having to play alongside or against really good gamers. I am not up to their standards, and I am not. I could play a game for 20 minutes and suddenly be all like, "Oop, that's out of my system," and leave. When there's other people involved, all of a sudden, like there's like commitments to it and all that. So that's it. Okay, William Oswald. Think about running a noir-style detective game. There are certain medias, TV shows, video games, movies that serve as good inspiration. Oh man, if you want to do a noir-style detective, like right now, I happen to be rereading the Maltese Falcon, but definitely check out the Bogart version of the Maltese Falcon. Probably check out a couple of good noir movies. Um, a lot of the noirs don't always have detectives though, because Double Indemnity didn't. But Double Indemnity might be able to work for one. The guy was the absent-minded professor, and My Three Sons, he was in kind of a villainous role. You kind of check out some of that old stuff. If you want to do stuff for the old time period, I really recommend something like Boardwalk Empire. If you're wanting to do that 1920s period sort of stuff, because it's told for a modern audience, but it really shows that time period very well. And then mostly check out just a lot of good crime shows. And Agatha Christie stuff is good, just to kind of see how well they can build the plots and the scenes and stuff like that. But I would probably start with Maltese Falcon. And let's see, we are getting five. Let's go and give this like 5 more minutes. Rick Sherbert 34, $10. Thanks for all the traveler content, Seth. Your tips on over on One Shot is really helpful for streamline some adventures. My pleasure. I'm glad you're enjoying it. One shots are a lot of fun because it's a very different animal than if you're playing something like campaign play, where you're really trying to give it this long-term goal, versus a one shot's more like a movie. You don't know if they're going to live. and video podcasts where I can see or listen to how to run a Call of Cthulhu game. Tutorial videos are awesome, but you see running a full game. There's a few Into the Darkness YouTube channel and podcast you could check out. Uh, I've also done stuff with How We Roll, which they've got fun games to play, which I've done a couple of those under Scott Dorward. Uh, yeah, there's a few you can check out. I think even Critical Role has done a Call of Cthulhu game, but kind of look around because like when you're looking for anything like that, there's going to be like some really great ones. There's going to be some really bad ones. I don't really watch any of those, so I couldn't even give you recommendations as to what some of the best ones would be. But I'm pretty sure if you go onto one of the forums, like the Facebook Call of Cthulhu group, the Reddit Call of Cthulhu group, and literally ask like same question. Like, I'm interested in playing this game. I'd like to just see some people play it. Are there really any good examples of what it should really play like? And they could probably point you to some really either YouTubes or podcasts or something like that, where you can actually get to see what the game should feel like. But good luck. Do I come up with a plot hook or the game world first? When I was doing D&D, I usually came up with the game world first. But so at the same time, I have one of my best campaigns I ever did of D&D. I came up with the plot hook and the game world separately, but for separate reasons. And then you kind of work out this world, right? You work out this plot. It also kind of occurs to you like, oh, I could put these two things together, and now I've got a campaign to run. So there's building a world is fun, and building a world can be really cool as you're kind of visualizing it. But having a plot to go with it really gives me more fire to write it for a specific purpose. But even with writing fiction, a lot of times it's just several separate ideas come together because you realize that they're a good fit for one another. And once they merge is actually when you start coming up with what it's going to be. So I've never kind of sat down and was like, I want to write a game, let me create a world, and then I'll come up with a plot for it. It's usually a little bit of both coming together at some point. And no, I've already read this one. W. Key Largo. That's a good one. I've never seen Murder My Sweet and Lady from Shanghai. Thank you, Def Monkey 21. There's some good noir recommendations there. But yeah, I forgot about Key Largo. Question, do you have a favorite creature that I like to throw at my parties? I can't really think any off the top of my head. That yeah, I think I've had some at different points that maybe before it's a particular campaign. I just had it where I just absolutely loved these, but I've never really had too much repeats of a lot of creatures outside of like the really general ones like orcs or something like that. Just because there are so many monsters in like D&D that it's like, I don't want to recycle this. And then with games like Call of Cthulhu, I don't like to do too many repeats. I don't want anything to feel blasé. I always want that bit of weirdness of, ooh, what's this? So if you overuse it, it loses its power. So with that game, I have to avoid it in order to not have it always be the same thing. While in D&D, I had 10 billion choices that I could go through that I always had something new I wanted to try out. So not really any big favorites. A lot of the popular ones I might have only used once or twice. Like I think I've only used like one mimic, and then I think I've used 2 beholders ever. So, and I didn't use too many dragons. I always had dragons were so damn powerful that they were, you don't just fight a dragon. They're big and bad and horrifying. I always beefed them up a bit. We used a few, but they weren't that common. The player characters coming across a dragon was usually involved in a quest to get to the dragon versus randomly because I had them be very rare and terrifying. Um, let's see, Eric Alexander, I'd love to see you take a Traveler Prison Planet, running a similar module right now. I've never read that one. I know that it was referenced in Murder in Arcturus Station, I believe, in case the travelers fail. It's like, well, if they get fail, they go to prison. Hey, check out Prison Planet. But I never read it, so can't really give you any you know any thoughts on it. And Wawoozle, love Mysteries in Arcturus Station. Thank you. Will we see more traveler adventures written by you? Fully written by me. Nothing really in the pipeline on that. As far as another classic adventure getting an update by me, no comment. Just keep an eye on any announcements. Question: how do I suggest role-playing ancient NPCs? Oh man, there's so many different ways you could do that, what that could mean. I think the best job I ever did portraying an ancient NPC, because at this point they have literally seen everything. It is very difficult to impress them. Uh, they are they're very old. They're very tired. Um, but what I did was it was more of a really long impersonation of Antonio Banderas's Armand from Interview with the Vampire. I think that he did a really good job of portraying that. Of he is very old, and he is uh, oddly cynical, but really charming at the same time. So that was my best version of that. Because if you are dealing with just a seriously old character, there would be a bit of that tiredness or boredom to them. But at the same time, Armand, what I liked about Banderas' portrayal of him, because it was far away removed from how Armand was in the books, such as he wasn't like, I think Armand was 15 in the book, but it is he was smooth, he exuded power, but at the same time, he had absolutely no patience for bullcrap. He's past that. So I recommend that. That was the very best one we ever did. It was a villain was named Childis, and he talked like this. So I have fun. Azimuth, Heath Daniel Boy, thank you for the $5. Question: I'm working on Diesel Punk Fantasy Campaign. Any advice on Diesel Punk and RPGs? No, never done Diesel Punk. Well, we've done the different pulp games that have some of the Diesel Punk elements to them, such as Hollow Earth Expedition or Pulp Cthulhu. Where you've got like the big drill machines, or you drill down, and to the earth, and then you pop up, in the bank vault or in the Hollow Earth or something like that. But I've never actually done like a Diesel Punk game, so sounds cool. I've actually always preferred Diesel Punk over Steampunk. Dre Hansen, will there be more cult reviews coming? Yeah, once we finish some more adventures, and then eventually a system review once I'm ready for that. Right now we're doing the Atrocity exhibition. Great adventure, except for I started it a little bit before the exhibition started. So we, due to scheduling stuff, it's like taking forever to get the games hammered out. Our next one's next week, but we have had 2 sessions, and we're like on page 1 of the Atrocity exhibition. They're finally at the exhibition, so yay! But like the woman that's hosting it hasn't even showed up yet. The next session will begin when their host arrives fashionably late, and they can actually begin the showing. Everything up to that, because I wove in their dark secrets and all that stuff. We're really getting into the role play with those characters. So I wanted to spend some time playing those characters that we spent 2 sessions just playing. I think the first one was like, it was an amazing game. We all loved it, but from one standpoint, we literally did nothing except for role play these people's lives, and it was awesome. So once we finish that adventure, I'll review it. I've got a couple others that I want to do. Lorraine Heights, I want to do, and I definitely want to find some time to grab a player for a one-on-one and do the driver, which is in one of their books. It's about to be released as a Kickstarter book they recently had. There's a really cool adventure in there called The Driver. At some point, I do want to talk about. I've got the big cult book that's got all the normal rule book. But they sent me their Bible edition with the gold sides. It's so cool. And so at some point, I actually kind of want to do a video just talking about the different things with cult. This is a thing that was on the outside of the wrapper. It's a little 3-ribbon Bible-sized core rule book that is really, really freaking cool. Don't know how useful this would actually be in a easy to reference sort of thing. I prefer the big full-size book that's got all the illustrations, because that doesn't have illustrations. But man, it wins style points as far as being like the most badass core rule book ever. Well, the main one. This isn't this is what the main core rule book looks like. Unless you got the other main core rule book that is I don't know, might get me in trouble if I showed the cover of that one. So it's over there. From computers declared you were a traitor to yourself for termination. I enjoy the hell out of Paranoia, but Paranoia is never anything that it ever occurs to me to run. Whenever we've got time to play something, I always think about playing something else. I would love to have somebody run me through Paranoia. Oh man, is somebody recommending David Lee? Looks like he's recommending Knight's Edge, the cyberpunk vampire book. Hell yeah, we used that a lot. That was a fun one. Though the guy that ran us with it added a lot of Vampire the Masquerade elements, so we never ran pure Knight's Edge. DJ Annam question: Keith Parkinson fan here as well. I love Keith's work. Any particular favorites of his? Like how about? See, I have. Well, you've seen in a lot of videos. I have the Druid Stone by Parkinson. That's usually behind Mike in the videos. I also have the Glyke, I think that's how you pronounce it, of Lord Soth's Charge, and that's in our living room. I would love if they had available the Lankmar City of Adventure by Parkinson. They have the Gods of Lankmar, where the kind of the liches, the Lich Kings or something, all kind of standing around. That's cool, but I would absolutely love to have one of Lankmar City of Adventure. I'd get that as a Glyke and get it framed. A lot of Parkinson's stuff was just absolutely wonderful. When I was younger, I didn't really occur to me as to which artist would do what, but I always gravitated to his images. There was one old first edition picture that, if I could find it as a print without the text on it, if I could just get the image itself as a print, I would absolutely jump on it. Is the cover of Dragon Magazine, October 1986, about the witches. Just because we used to, my wife back in college, she played a witch out of that particular one. I've always loved that cover. I've never been able to find anything on where I could ever get a print of that without the Dragon Magazine and a barcode and all that stuff on it. But I've always loved that image. That one wasn't a Parkinson. It says in there who painted that, and I always enjoyed it. But that artist, I never was able to find a website or anything on them of where I could find more of their stuff. And I think we're about ready to wrap this up. But Daniel Smith, do you ever get a look at Cthulhu's Cold Fire Within? Yes, it's right there. That's one of the ones that I am considering to run eventually once we're done with some of the stuff that we're doing right now. But I haven't read enough of it to really even formulate a full opinion of it. But I thought it would be kind of fun since we Two-Headed Serpent was a big hit. But so I haven't played it, I haven't even fully read it, but I've got it. So, and Star Sentinel, sweet Jesus, man! Thank you for $50. Love your channel, hours of entertainment. Oh, thank you. I've always said if I can't be helpful, I can at least be entertaining is my goal. Any thoughts on playing a Lizard Man PC? It depends on the world. If you've got a world where a lizard man could come strut into town and not just be have everybody charge away at them, and yet it could actually interact with people, it'd be fine. I always really enjoyed lizard men as antagonists, just because I like the idea of them being the lizard men rising out of the water sort of deal. When I was writing my kind of unpublishable first novel that I was going to write on, the big monster threat looming was it's essentially lizard men, for lack of a better term. That's clearly what had inspired them. So I'm a big fan of them as monsters. Getting to play one. So it depends on the world, depends on the setting. If it's not appropriate for it, I'd hate to see it. If it works in the world, great. But you would probably want to be able to role play that like you without moving your lips. So there's talk out like this because they don't really have lips like you and me. So maybe try that out. But anyways, okay. I always find one more question. Ernie Miller question. Started watching your videos about 3 years ago. Binge watching me once per day. I'm sure 2020 screwed my schedule up. It did, but maybe not in the way a lot of people think. Do I have a schedule? Often I expect a new video. So my schedule only got screwed up because my wife works at home. Pretty much the bulk of 2020 and now most of the time now. So it is actually a lot more difficult for me to do come in here and do recordings and stuff like that because now we're shuffling people because a lot of times she actually will sit in the game room so she can close the door and do a lot of meetings, which means she's sitting exactly where I am right now. So I can't come in here and record or anything because she's using the room for work. Or she is in basically the room outside, but she's might be doing conference calls and whatnot. And there's a lot of sound. I don't want that to mess up one of my videos where you can hear a conference call going on in the background, or I don't want her conference call to have me being all like, hello, internet in the background, really loud. So we do kind of have to shuffle around one another in order to kind of have it all be smooth. I try to get a video up. 2 weeks is kind of like my hard line. Sometimes I'll get them out in a week, but the longer the channel goes, the longer it takes for me to do videos. And if you compare some of my early stuff to the stuff that I do now, the videos are usually a lot longer. They have a lot more images that come up. So which means I've got more prep work that I'm doing, putting together a lot more images that flash up on the screen. Even the simple ones where it's like, a 1950s businessman, doing his little thing. I had to find a good picture there and put that up. So the behind the scenes time to make the videos is longer, as well as the windows as far as when I can record has been limited just due to that. But I try to get them out every 2 weeks. For a while, I was cranking them out about once a week, and I started getting a bit of a burnout because that was all I do. The behind the scenes stuff before a video comes out is several days, and then of course. Recording it is like the second to last step. So at that point, like I've already done the bulk of the work, and then editing it, I actually kind of find relaxing because that means everything else is done. So I started getting a bit of burnout when I was doing once a week because, in addition to that, I'm also doing all the other stuff that comes with, having a YouTube channel, checking comments and responding and all that. So it's a lot of time. So I try to do about a 2-week schedule now just to keep my sanity, but also because my stuff is a little bit more elaborate than it used to be. And I think I have hit my time limit of when I said I was going to be logging off. And well, Ollie Grant, thank you for $3. I see an emoji that looks like a fry guy that's kissing at me. So thank you. And then Azimuth Heath Daniel Boyer. Will I please archive the video? Yeah, I archive all my live stuff. It'll take a while for YouTube to load it all up because it's going to have to process all this crap. So it might not show up for like a day or so before you can do it. But you can, once it's up there, I've got a playlist of all my lives that you can go on. You can see it that there once it's ready. Depends on how fast YouTube is. Sometimes it knocks these stuff out fast. Sometimes it's just painfully slow, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. So, but yes, you will be able to find the earlier half of this video once YouTube has processed it. But anyways, guys, I am going to go ahead and log off. It has been 2 hours, and I've been chugging water, and I got a wrist like a pace horse, so I got to go. But tomorrow we'll be playing a little Pulp Cthulhu, so hopefully that'll go real good. But everybody, go ahead and have a great day. Thanks for coming and just kind of wasting a couple hours of my afternoon, just letting me chat. And yes, it was fun. Thanks.